Announced violence would be offered a safe passage, while Gaza would be run by an interim government with a possible future rule for the Palestinian Authority. The proposal represents a shift from Trump's earlier hardline stance, but Netanyahu faces opposition from far-right members of his coalition. Trump says he is confident of a breakthrough, but Hamas says it has not officially received the plan. Well, that's news to the hour on WESN. I'm Naomi McNish. Thanks for watching.
WESN.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Remember waking up early just to catch your favorite cartoons? WESN brings back those magical mornings with Retro Saturdays.
Thus, the Powerpuff Girls were born!
Where the young at heart relive the fun. Join us every Saturday from 8 a.m. to 12 noon, only on WESN, the content capital.
WESN.
Hello, Trinidad and Tobago. My name is Mark Anthony Peter, and welcome to Breakthrough, right here on WESN Content Capital. As per usual, on the Breakthrough table, I am joined by my co-host, Sean Michaelsmore. Good morning, Sean. How are you?
I am fine.
All right, nice. Okay, that's enough for me. Now we can get on to the topic of discussion for this morning. All right. So, really and truly, first of all, how was your weekend?
I would just like to say I am not being held against my will. I am not being coerced to be silenced. I have not been censored by Mark Anthony Peter.
You can answer the question now.
Okay, so yes, I'm fine.
How was your weekend?
Yeah. Oh, my weekend. Yes, my weekend. It was not as restful as I would like it to be.
Oh.
Usually Sundays, there's too many things going on. I'm trying to follow NFL, I'm out with the guys and stuff happens and then
outside.
Well, what happened was
must be
now it's time.
Nice.
No, I wasn't outside. I was out of my house. But now is where we get to be a downer. Ever since one of our friends passed away in July, we've been trying to meet up in person more regularly.
Well,
that's
really, really nice of you all. It is one of those. It is those moments where you just realize life is too short. And
we already were. But that was like once a month, and who's hosting, and we gotta get food and whatever. But now it's like, okay, we're trying to do activities, because of COVID, everything is, we'll talk online. At least people of a certain generation or certain subcultures, right? We'll talk online, Discord and all of that, but at some point, in part, our friend who died, he himself disengaged because that lack of personal, in-person activities, it just didn't appeal to him in the same way. Okay. So, so Saturday, got the haircut, right? Wish I had more time to sleep. But other than that, it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad.
Okay.
Nice. I enjoyed myself. My team winning on Sundays helps me enjoy my weekend.
Right. See, Shawn Michaels one has fun outside of television as well.
My brain doesn't want to shut off, so I don't sleep.
Bro, yeah, regardless of whatever doom and gloom that he reports on a daily basis, Monday to Friday.
I try very hard to segment.
Okay. Compartmentalize.
Compartmentalize. It's too depressing otherwise.
Okay, I understand. But with that, there's a lot of things happening within the country. Obviously, since the change of government, there's been a lot of the ministries are basically kind of getting their foot going in terms of what sort of policies they want to implement. And there was an article actually in the news that came out a couple of days ago about basically tourism being, how it can be like a key pillar in the economy of Trinidad and Tobago, right? So like according to the Newsday, the Ministry of Trade, Investment and Tourism is seeking to transform the tourist industry into a central driver of the economy in both Trinidad and Tobago. That's a quote directly from the Newsday. It's built around this year's theme of tourism and sustainable transformation, right? So the article, it's a very interesting article. I'm sure you can find it. It goes on, it goes a little bit more in depth into what sort of policies, well, not specific, but it goes on to explain how they're going to do that, how they view the economy. One of the things that the article also mentioned, the ministry recognizes that the tourism industry is indeed very multifaceted, all right, and it includes, but they're including within the tourism industry, the industries of like transportation, food and beverage, arts and culture, sport, agriculture, art, and health, right? So all of those things they've sort of umbrellas under the industry of tourism, which makes sense because all of those things offer very unique things to Trinidad and Tobago that people want to take part in, and people want to go see a show, people want to go visit the bird sanctuary. You'll be sailing on a boat, right? All of those things. So with that, we're going to sort of discuss it a little bit. I sent you the article, yes, Shawn, and I'm sure you've had topics of discussion surrounding the ministries and the tourism industries and all of those things. You always make the point that the art industry specifically is very young, right? Mm-hmm. And it's in a growing stage, right? Early growing stage. We're still figuring things out. The old cultures of the arts being sort of a hobby.
Let me just be more accurate. The more professional art industry, right, is somewhat young, right, but technically something of an industry has existed for a long time, right? Okay. Right? Yeah. But it's just like the mode that it's in, or the form that's it's in. Okay. That's one of the few things about Gates where I think you could see a clear benefit. Okay. The improvement of skills training, right, and making the performance industries more professional than they were before.
Right. So that's what I was going on to say. The training, the skills training, the education available, the level of industry, the level of education that is available on the tertiary level, not just from one institution as well. Right. So we have many different avenues where people can gain experience and certification at the same time. We have countless examples of people who've gone abroad to pursue their master's, their doctorate in certain things, both here and abroad as well. People who've had director jobs, people who have come back, people who live sort of back and forth, doing their thing here and doing their thing abroad. What do you hope that the ministry, because I actually didn't know that it was all in one, trade, investment and tourism.
Yes.
Right? What do you think what is your hope that the ministry is able to do now that they've recognized all of these things as part of the tourism industry, now that they've come out and said it? Because I always feel like within the past years, the tourism industry, the creative arts industry as well, there's always kind of been like talked about sort of like a by the way sometimes. Mm-hmm. But this new government, they've actually come out and the ministry has come out and said this. What is your hope for the industry on a whole and what they hopefully can do.
There's an interesting issue in that the previous administration lumped tourism with arts and culture. That makes sense with regards to the fact that that's part of our offering as a unique destination, right? And it would make it easier to integrate if it did that. The current administration looped it with trade and industry, right? That makes sense from the business, trade investment. That makes sense from the business perspective because a lot of the core issues are not necessarily with the arts and culture side. It's because tourism as an industry is not too dissimilar to the performing arts industries and creative arts industries in that it grew at a certain point on a professional level up until like the 80s, maybe 90s, but then at some point it just stagnated and it, relatively speaking, is somewhat unprofessional. There isn't necessarily standards. You don't necessarily have proper formalized institutional or industrial foundations, regulations, practices. Various things like guest houses don't pay hotel tax or VAT with regards to how government doesn't market if there's any amount of standards for how hotels should operate in certain regards, right? I think like the police service in Tobago, they do a reasonable job to try to meet the needs of both consumers and businessmen in the tourism industry. But to say that there's like formalized systems in place to say, well, if there's a violation in here and we have rules to prevent exploitation of customers or exploitation of workers, like I don't think we really have that because the industry is immature, similar to arts and entertainment. So what am I hoping for? Well, the interesting thing is the first thing that I would need to hope for is more on the trade side, the industry side, right? And that is marketing. Because if the product is not known, who's going to come to see the product? My fear is because and it's a compromise, it's not necessarily better or worse, but because we moved it from arts and culture, now we may have issues in trying to now integrate arts and culture elements into the product and into the marketing. Because that's the thing. Now, one of the things that we overdo with the marketing is market TNT based around Carnival. And the temptation is that's when we get the most visitors. But the problem is we don't have Carnival Monday, Tuesday every month. Even with Tobago Carnival, we only have it, and that's assuming Tobago Carnival can reach that level of consumer demand and output, because you actually have to have the costumes. It doesn't matter how many customers that wants to be there. That's still only basically two weekends, right? Essentially. Yes, there's more to Carnival than that. But you're not going to have the same level of consumer spend in your tourism products with band launches, right? You don't have a whole Saturday diaspora descending in Trinidad and Tobago for a few weeks just for band launches, just for fetes in December or fetes in January, depending on where Carnival falls. If Carnival falls later, the international market might not come until later. If Carnival falls sooner, then you have less period. They might come sooner, but you know, I wonder, like, there's going to be those who come in just for Carnival itself, then those who come a week before, then those who come a couple of weeks or a month before, right? Those are all different segments, and you're not going to say it's going to be big enough to sustain tourism for the whole year. So what else?
So essentially what you're saying, and this is like a buzzword that people use, but I'm also the holistic approach in terms of what we do throughout the entire year and the people that are attracted to each of those things throughout the entire year.
Because I think, like listening to Chrison sing last week, when you hear Calypsonians sing in carnival competitions, that is, that's a Calypsonian singing in a carnival competition, that's carnival. When Chrison sings Calypso, that is the art form. Just being the art form.
So does
it could be December, it could be August. No, but like when Kitchener sang the Bees Melody, right? It didn't need to be carnival. That was the art form. A lot of Rudder's songs are the old-time calypsos. We're not just, we're doing it for carnival. Like it went on. Like soca to some extent, you will get more of soca throughout the year because it is it's party music. it's high energy music.
Okay.
So it's not just limited to carnival.
Right.
That's why you could have fetes for more than just carnival, right? But calypso is one art form that you may have concerts, but how many people really think about calypso outside of carnival and treat it as more than just, oh, well, we have, what calypso king competition, calypso queen, or young king, young queen, right? Because a lot of the calypsos, they're limited in style, they're limited in melody, structure.
Maybe it's because
they all sound the same.
Maybe it's because I'm in the industry that I probably disagree, because I'm hearing it all the time. But it's also my job to talk on these things all the time.
Right.
So maybe but
really and truly, how much is calypso being pushed as an art form as opposed to a thing connected to carnival?
I think with that you'll see more of that following more happening with people following the artist that does the art form rather than the art form itself, right? So for example, Christian,
because he would do I remember him on North Coast Jazz. That's like in the middle of the year.
But then those are the people that, as we say, if the industry is still growing, then those are the people that will contribute to the art form in and of itself, right? What I find interesting, what my hope is that it's now trade, investment, and tourism, and Ministry of Culture has now become culture and community. So I hope that there is some sort of collaboration within the two, because the community part of it covers, because we've had a lot of conversations about art and culture and the importance of community in it. So that sort of handles,
the
that comes from that.
Collaboration is hard. And then now when you're trying to collaborate, when you speak an art language and the other person speaks a trade language, and then it's like, because this is what happens all the time where businessmen say, we have a marketing guy, but we don't appreciate the marketing guy, so we go with a cheaper marketing guy because we think, oh, it'll be more effective, except we lose more business than we've saved money. Right? And some similar things can happen with your artists. Say you had Marshall Montano and you're like, no, Calypsonian B is cheaper. But what if he doesn't have the same level, right? He doesn't command the following, so you lose more money, right? And this is the thing, business people want to think in business terms, artists people want to think of artist terms. Sometimes the negative is in the arts people when they're like, but this is art, we must be pure to ourselves. And it's like, yes, but you're going to bankrupt us before we begin. And, you know, there are limits to both sides.
But there needs to be some sort of compromise.
So that's why it's collaboration,
That's why it's collaboration.
But they speak different languages.
They do speak different language. So
even when the tourism was with art and culture, that didn't necessarily mean that automatically it would solve it.
Because I found myself in situations where I will be speaking to different languages, speaking a different language from somebody else, and it would very much be a roundabout sort of conversation.
You say that, you're all both speaking English, but the terms.
Yes, yes, not literally two different languages.
It's like the difference between a mechanical engineer and a chemistry teacher, right? Or a computer programmer.
Because even within the arts, sometimes musicians and theater people, we speak
differently.
We speak differently, right? Because something as very simple as musicians will count you in 1, 2, 3, 4. Dancers will always say 5, 6, 7, 8. Right? That's just a very small, but just to show that there's a little bit of a discrepancy with the communication.
There's dance terms.
There's music terms, there's dance terms, etc., etc.
So there's various performing arts terms.
And we don't know each other's terms all of the time.
And then there's business terms.
And then there's
corporate speak.
Yeah, that's why corporate and marketing and all of those things.
And then,
it's such a scary thing for artists, me especially.
So one of the things...
Sorry, but before you go on, just to make the point that I was going to make, there needs to be some sort of I don't want to say collaboration, I don't want to say mediation, but some sort of meeting in the middle, some sort of compromise where everybody sort of understands what each other is saying. The business person understands the artist and the artist understands the business person. It's like, yeah, because at the end of the day, the artist wants this to be to make money.
Here's the key, and we might venture too far into politics, but it doesn't have to necessarily go there.
Okay.
What is the goal? Because the language is different, the goal in and of itself could be understood differently. So ultimately, you need either the ability to come to a good faith and proper consensus, or you have a leader who everyone has enough faith to follow, or you have some draconian measure where you're forced to follow him, and hopefully you pick the right leader in that case, because if you pick the wrong leader, you follow him off a cliff, right?
Right.
So this is why I say it might venture to politics, because tourism probably needs government support, right?
Okay.
But then now, what tends to happen is, outside of oil and gas to some degree, most politicians don't really understand a lot of the private sector.
Right, yes.
And tourism, unfortunately, is a weird place where the largest operators are owned by the government, but they still don't actually understand what it takes for the tourism industry, right? And yet we're depending on them to manage that level of infrastructure, of industry, right? Because when you have hotel associations and one of the biggest members is the government, how does the hotel association negotiate on behalf of the hotels with the government, right? And they don't necessarily see what all the operators go through. They might see what Hilton goes through and Hyatt goes through.
So, okay, so my question to you is, can there be a way of, because you brought up a good point, because one of the thoughts that I had is, you know, there needs, on the topic of collaboration, there needs to be some sort of meeting with the government and private sector and things like that. And we always have a culture, we have a way of saying it in this country that if you want good, private sector costs money, but you get good quality, and sometimes public sector, as much as it is available, sometimes the quality is a little bit low, especially in some people have that view in terms of like in the healthcare system and things like that.
That's just economics.
That's just economics across the board.
Economics, not capitalism. It could be communism. That is literally human psychology economics.
Right. So maybe there needs to be some sort of the top meeting the ground, just having discussions with the ground and saying, you know, this is what we need to do. What is the experience like? How do we drive this forward? So then
now hotel people will speak in a whole other different language. You see, the politicians speak in a different language. The trade technocrats speak in a different language, right? The culture people speak in a different language, and then the hotel people speak in a different language. And then which hotel people, will they all agree? Potentially not. When you get a large number of people, it's very hard to quickly figure out, okay, what is really the thing we need to do.
But I think it helps when the the subcategories of the industries have their own associations.
Yes.
Right?
And they can build it up from the ground up.
Right.
It's actually not too similar to how a political party used to operate. You have party groups locally, right, that will then send people to conventions, right, to represent them. This is kind of what American conventions are like. Right. Now, at least with the PNM, it's one man, one vote, and it kind of, it cuts out the middlemen, but the problem is the middlemen weren't necessarily just insulation. That could have, you know, like when you have a middleman in a transaction, that could cause confusion. But what it does is, it's a pyramid, right? The membership is really large. The middlemen kind of help translate things and sift it up and shrink it down to a more manageable message to get that consensus naturally. And that's basically what you're saying. Like, we need to have steps to go, okay, well, what does each individual on the ground says, and then what's the next level? Right. That's a smaller group of people, and we shrink it down to the point where you could have one room of people to make decisions for everybody. One room that is informed enough, that has at least one person that's informed enough of every perspective, right? And if it's done correctly, it could work, but part of it is then what I think it's not just like what the government wants out of it, it's what the society wants out of it. Because
we could... government asking the society what they want out of it.
Right, because we could say we want tourism, but if nobody wants to work in the industry, because it's not an easy industry to work in.
It's not.
Right? And then again, the interesting thing is, our tourism products probably will not be successful without consideration to two things. The natural environment and how to both exploit it while maintaining it, right? So usually when you say exploit, that's a bad word, right? But no, economically exploit, but preserve it, right?
Right.
The Argyle Falls in Tobago, Boko Reef, you know, the Bird Sanctuary, the Pitch Lake, various spots all over Trinidad and Tobago, right? We want to preserve it for future generations, and also because there will be a market for that rustic appeal. The other thing is the arts and culture. That's what we have. We invented steel pan, we invented limbo, and yet how many people that visit the country know about these things? And there are certain aspects of carnival about traditional mass that is cultural and historical, that does not necessarily have to be only presented.
Okay.
Obviously, as Campbell and stuff like that, you'll do it then. But the idea, in theory, of having like the headquarters of Pantry and Bago near the cruise ships and you have a little theater, that idea isn't bad. The implementation might not be the best, but the point is to have cultural shows that you could kind of build up while you build up the market, so that there will always be customers, because obviously residents aren't going to see this every day of the week, every week of the year. But if we have a constant flow.
Correct. So I have a question I'm going to throw it to you, and I'm also going to throw it to the audience watching here. You know, it's something to think about. How, especially those in the creative and artistic industry, has the industry done a good job of growing naturally with the hard work of its stakeholders, and we just need that extra, but the sort of formal presentation of it has not been the same, has not been on equal level? That's a genuine question that I have, right? Because I see the growth of the industry and I see it maturing into something really great. And I say that because of the good work that the stakeholders are doing, the good work that the artists are doing, all artists across the board. But the conversation about investment, the conversation about how it functions in tourism, the conversation about the government's involvement, the conversation about corporate involvement, like what are we missing? What are we missing with regards to this in terms of its formal presentation, in terms of its formal standing here locally and its formal presentation and standing abroad, right? And it's like it feels like it's the view of, yeah, we know the people that go out abroad and represent us, but I don't feel like we have, and you sort of always mention it, the comparison between art and culture and sport. Like, I feel like there's a much more patriotic stamp when somebody represents us abroad in sport.
Yes.
And it's more of the individual artists. And all of these individual artists, don't get me wrong, they always say, from Trinidad and Tobago, where they grew up, all of those people, right? We have really great ambassadors. But the objective view, that's a genuine question that I have. So if I don't know. But what I want to pivot to really quickly, just as we wrap up this first segment, it's part of the tourism industry, is now part of the ministry, is now part of trade and investment. You recently went to the trade and investment convention that happened, I believe it was August?
No, July.
July, right.
Yeah.
What did you, like, with all of this, with this conversation, with the ministry now becoming trade, investment, and tourism, what are some of the things that you saw with people that presented, and what are some of the conversations that you had with some people?
A lot of it was around manufacturing. There was some service industries involved. Etienne Charles did have an appearance. Right. Yes. Big ups to one of the top musicians of the island, because that man was a genius from Form 2. But anyway, Tobago had a fair representation. We saw a lot of products being produced. In fact, there was one product that I wanted to follow up on, but I think I just completely forgot because of the ending night, and I literally haven't remembered until now. Art is like manufacturing. Okay. It's in its industry. It had its heyday. What parts that are big that exist now are not young? Think about most of our top soca artists. Maybe Kes is relatively new, right? Compared to, say, Marshall Montano. Obviously, David Rudder is, you know, he's a well-established veteran, right?
Definitely eras of yeah.
But think about who are the biggest names in Calypso, who are the biggest names in soca, and they're not 20, right? Maybe Voice, right? But you know, a lot of the big names are older. Well-established over a period of time. Before Kes was in soca, Kes was still in a band performing. It was he had an established brand, right?
And I would just be fair, and I would say, like, who, and this is just a generational thing, who you would call big names is probably not big name to like probably younger ones, Gen Z, that sort of thing.
Right, but the flip side is, part of it is for an industry, part of it is yes, how much sales you're going to have, whether it's records, whether it's streams. But I would assume for local artists, a lot of it is your fees that you demand with regards to appearances.
Right.
And I think one of the things, the issues with both situations and with tourism might actually be not too dissimilar in that it never really matured because oil and gas kind of took over. And not only did it kind of take over, so we didn't, at some point we stopped innovating. We just, all right, oil and gas gives us foreign exchange, we'll import stuff, right? Because we could import stuff, we could import entertainment. Because we could import entertainment, we could bring in people for Plymouth Jazz Festival and Beyonce in the Savannah and stuff like that. Like how much of our local artists did we just stop supporting because, well, we have cable and we could travel and we could bring foreign acts abroad, right? And yes, we had these community amateur community performing groups, but to say that the professional industry, I would argue in the 80s it might have been just as big or bigger, 80s, 90s, than in the late 2000s, 2010s, right? Like, yes, Kess and Marshall grew, but did the industry grow, right? Because some of the technology and infrastructure that they use might have been the infrastructure that was built up to host people like the international acts in the Oval, right? And the international, so, because the economy was kind of skewed, things like art, things like sport, things like tourism, and even local manufacturing, they were stagnant in a way. And now we have to, now that the economy and the oil and gas can't prop it up and can't support everything around it, and we can't have all this foreign exchange, we have to try and figure it out.
Make sure the industry is
right. But the problem is we're kind of, everything is based on a weird balancing point of existing on oil and gas. So we don't even know what the economy is supposed to look like without it. Now with manufacturing, the good thing about that is an obvious solution to try to answer that question. But with luxury things like entertainment, it's different. That doesn't mean that it can't be part of the answer. And of course, tourism needs to go more to foreign tourism, not local tourism, because we need the money to come in. And that's part of where art and culture could be part of the answer, right? But we just haven't figured it out. Everything is in a weird spot because of Dutch disease. That's for those who know, right? And it's when you become too reliant on extraction of a natural resource, mainly oil. Right? So other industries suffer.
Didn't know that.
Right?
Interesting.
So it happened to Venezuela, it happened to us, it happened to a lot of countries. I think Norway is one of the few countries that avoided it. And to be fair, like I'll close with this one example. We have a local comedian scene. They only put in so much work, and I think it's because they themselves have not been able to mature like on the level that you would see in the comedy clubs away. Because they are
because the industry itself is young.
The industry is young, I understand that, but they don't seem to be willing. The ones currently, too many of them are complacent, or they don't think they can push the industry for more.
I don't think so. I think it's more of a thing of they themselves are also balancing it out and trying to figure it out on their own, because they don't really have local a lot of local examples of how to follow.
I understand that, but the point, that's why I say to some extent it's complacency, in part because they don't know. It's immature, I get that, but just based off of the raw numbers, we are not that small that we can't have a local comedy club like, I'll just throw out a name, The Cellar. I'm talking about those small clubs where even big comedians in America go to work on material. You don't need a lot of people. You just need it to be consistent, right? You just need to have people willing, right, to not make it to the top immediately, but to do the grunt work to build it, both the operator and the comedians themselves. And then, of course, now, you could then take your act, yes, okay, we don't have a large country. You could go abroad with it and take it abroad. But 1.4 million people, we should be able to support more arts and culture. We should be able to support more comedians, more singers, more theater, right? We should be able to support some amount of film projects. But at some point, we stopped. Because I would argue that the giants, we even had giants of comedy. But do we have true giants of comedy of the current age, outside of a couple of social media people like Rody?
Well, I think that, well, I think what happens is that they kind of have to, like I said, they kind of have to figure it. They're figuring things out on their own, and the industry itself has changed. There's no there aren't a lot of examples that they can follow, and they're all just sort of, what I will say is a lot of the comedians that I'm seeing, they are very much collaborating. They are collaborating with each other, playing at each other's shows and stuff like that, and putting in the work in terms of their presence, especially their presence on social media, because for them, I think that's one of the greatest ways that they can platform themselves and present something entertainment, because it's social media.
As comedians in America said, just because your social media funny doesn't mean
that
you could go
so then there's that, and then there's also their following going to them when they have their shows in Queen's Hall, because a lot of them have been having a lot of shows in Queen's Hall, and having really, really good crowds, right? Just as we wrap up this segment, I can't speak. The last thing that I would say is, as the industry develops, I hope that the standard of what we produce also develops. I hope the skills also develop, and once there's more collaboration across the board, then we should be all right. And I just want to,
collaboration is a skill.
Collaboration is indeed a skill, and we need to, always. Anyway. This has been the first segment of Breakthrough. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Hi, I'm Claudette, radiographer at the radiology departments at the community hospital. We offer high-quality service with state-of-the-art equipment in X-ray, ultrasound, CT, and mammogram. Come, our friendly staff awaits you.
Give us a call at 235-5479.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas, and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
Welcome back to Breakthrough Trinidad and Tobago, right here on WESN Content Capital. Now, the next topic of discussion, Sean and I were just sort of briefly talking off air, and I sort of made the point that there are a lot of artists who know what to do on stage, but they don't always necessarily have the skills to, produce right? Produce their own shows, produce their own events, projects, that sort of thing. They know how to do their thing, and they're really, really good at it. Some of them don't know how to. Some of them need a team of people to do it. And I realize people who can do the art, but also produce the events surrounding the art, they have a lot. They're very well skilled. Myself included. I've produced and also performed in many of my own projects and other people's projects as well. But one of the things that I suffer with a lot is burnout, right? Burnout from just being available, burnout from not available, burnout from just having to make decisions all of the time. I actually learned a term recently, which is called decision fatigue, right? Where you just have to make a decision all of the time, right? And this is something that just happens.
Is that the phenomenon that leads to, at some point, you're like, I don't care anymore. Just whatever's easier. You know, parents do that, and so do concert producers.
Yes.
Like, in fact, I told you, to some degree, I'm paraphrasing, but I do think I said something on the lines of, I was trying to imply, don't be one of the people that eventually starts to say, like, let's just cut things because I'm tired, and I want to cut out elements and simplify because I can't deal with it.
I distinctly remember a couple of moments, my team, something had to happen. It's probably like the week of the show, so it's probably a rehearsal or dress rehearsal or something or the other, or probably the day of the show, who knows? I don't even remember. It was so traumatic. And they came to me and said, you know, something has to happen. What do you want to do? I was just like, whatever all they want to do, just do it. And they were like, no, we actually need you to make the decision. You are the director. I was like, yeah, but just, and then one of them, they both came to me and they said, no, you need to make this decision. And I took a deep...
your last concert in Little Carib?
There are so many. I think so, probably.
Because
there are so many things that actually have to happen.
In that case, unfortunately, that is the correct response. It's your concert.
Yeah.
Like, literally, so you finance
but again, like, I know, but like, but I'm in a lot of director and producer roles.
I will say this, a real friend would say, I can make decision for you. You have to live with it.
That's a very...
And that's why you go back up. Do you really want me to make decision? Because I can make decisions.
So then that's why I've been very what's the word, tactful. I've been very aware of what my language is now. It's like, I'm not sure I'm able to answer that question, or what do you all think should happen, right? That sort of thing. It requires a little bit of energy, but not as much energy as actually making the decision. And then there's a dialogue, there's a conversation, and then the decision is made after that. But no, burnout is something that is very, very real. Performing on stage, producing all of these things for any artist is doing the thing is not easy. It's a lot of skill, especially if you're doing it at a certain standard and you want it done in a particular way.
You're burying the lead. The lead is the first slide in this post. I love it. I love it. Burnout is what happens when your nervous system has to impersonate your values for too long. Because when you are burnt out, yeah, all of a sudden, consideration just goes out the door. It is, I am tired. I want this to be over. And unfortunately, yes, you run the risk of really compromising your values, or in the case of a performer, your standards. Because that would be your values as a performer, your standards.
Yeah, it's a very real thing. And when you have that moment is then when you realize, you probably have to have a certain self-awareness to be like, oh, I'm burnt out and I need to like not do anything for like the next couple of days because the show is about to happen.
Because
right?
we are not blessed with the, oh, well, I have a concert and I'm going to run it like 100 times on a tour. So at some point, some of the amount of decisions I need to make, while it doesn't go to zero, because there'll always be issues that need to be addressed, adjustments to be made, you know, for whatever reason, right? Venue, somebody gets sick, etc., etc.
Right.
But you don't have the initial decisions to make anymore, right? You know, we know what the wardrobe's going to be. It's only if something gets torn or destroyed do we need to kind of stress it out. We know where everyone's placement is, what the music cues are. You know, we might adjust the order, but we know generally how the order's going to flow.
The thing is, what tends to happen is because of burnout, sometimes you do forget the things because your body is just so stressed and it's slowly shutting down. And the adrenaline can only carry you for so long, depending on how burnt out you are.
You know you can muscle memory certain things, huh?
You can.
Once you know the flow, you could just do it, right? It's tiring. But it's a whole different level of fatigue on if you have to actively make decisions. And that's the problem in TNT. Almost every show, if it's over the course of a weekend, it's multiple shows. But almost every project is like a brand new project.
Yes.
And it takes a whole new set of decisions.
Because you're always, the goalpost is moving each time, right? So you always want to up the ante, you always want to improve on it from the last one, you always have a specific vision for it. But come back to the post about burnout that you opened with. The next slide says when your body is stuck in survival mode, it will perform the life you think you should live, chasing approval, urgency, overworking, or control. Even when that life doesn't match your real values, your nervous system keeps you pushing, people pleasing, and producing to stay in control.
Anxiety pushes you?
Safe or get validation. Yeah, it does. So when you are not comfortable, when you are used to existing in that space, you think the anxiety is the thing that is driving you. But then you feel the effects of it afterwards. And then what happens, there's a sort of a delayed reaction to sort of deal with it. So, in essence, let me just give an example. So if I'm nervous about a concert, if I'm having this sort of anxiety and I'm like, it needs to be this, it needs to be that, and I am not existing an authentic life throughout that process, and I'm not I'm just existing authentically throughout the entire process. After the anxiety is kind of fueling me, and I'm like I'm just going. This is what it should look like, and then once it's done, it's over. Coming down from all of that is very, very difficult. And then what tends to happen is, because it wasn't dealt with, coming down from it doesn't mean that the anxiety was dealt with. Coming down just means you were coming down from everything. But the effects of the anxiety is still there because it will show up at the next project and the next project and the next project. So what tends to happen is that the anxiety, because you want to be in control of everything that's happening around you, you don't have control of everything that's happening inside of you. So then it shows up in other areas of your life. So it may show up in your snapping at family or friends. It shows up in your work, something that you're doing that doesn't necessarily have a deadline. You could just be playing solitaire on your computer, and you're just all of a sudden mad at the computer because you lost the game. But it's the unresolved and undealt with effects of the anxiety that you experience throughout the process.
This applies to everything. So it applies to particularly because I see in this parallels. A lot of organizations are small scale and it's run by an individual. And I've seen this in either a sole trader, sole ownership business or limited number of partners. And it's all like a private partnership, not a big company, right? Where you run into some of these problems. Chasing approval might not be as universal, at least I can't think of examples, but you see things like agency at times, overworking and control. Because what happens is there's an issue when somebody builds up a business. This is things studied in business school with regards to things like succession planning. Because the grandfather, the father, they spend their life building up this thing. How did they build it up? Well, for a lot of the time, they were driver, manager, HR manager, payroll manager, psychologist to staff, right? And not just if they dislike something you did. What if two members of staff dislike each other? Are you trying to play psychologist to manage their emotions and prevent a fight between your workplace employees? So you have to be everything. And then as it grows, especially for people who kind of are self-made people, right? So they don't have the formal education, or they have the formal education, but they really are not applying what they learned, right? Because their experience is telling them, it works if I do this. The problem is they don't necessarily understand why it works when you do this. They just see it works because I do this. They think the why is merely this, not the why is not something underlying, right? And then you start to apply that instinctively too much, and that goes back to control.
Correct, and I think you also, the post goes on to say, you value family and health, but your body runs on deadline adrenaline, says yes to everything and skips rest. You look committed, but you feel empty, right? You value honesty, but fear of conflict makes you people please and never put up boundaries. You seem kind, but you're resentful and exhausted.
I will also add, and you become passive aggressive.
Correct. So those are the things that it comes up later in life. So right now, I'm in a stage of my life where I'm like, what are the things that really matter to me? Is it that, are there some circumstances where I can say, you know what, because I try to be as on time as I can be, and I also somewhat have that expectation of others, but in some circumstances, it's not necessary, right? So
in some circumstances, other people will be late.
In some circumstances,
that's what I say.
No.
Because we in Trinidad and Tobago.
No, but what I'm saying is, even somebody may not value as much time, value being early as much as me, but it depends on the circumstance. If it's a rehearsal or if it's a show, obviously you have to come for your call time, right? But if it's a lime and I say the lime is 6 o'clock and people come in 6:37, like that's okay, it's a lime. So coming back to the question, what really matters? Is it that they come on, is it that I hold on to that value because I want to stay in control of everything? Or what? So that is it that it matters that they come on time, or is it matters that they are present?
And here's the thing: the more professional, if we go now strictly to the artistic industry, because it's in that transition. See, if it's a bank, there's no question about this. But in the arts, there's a question: the more professional it is, then the answer is more and more. I won't say to what degree. I'll just say that the degree increases. That yes, you be strict.
Yes.
Right?
Sure.
Because, like, take Kevin Hart. He basically says, I can't get in trouble because too many people depend on me. But here's the thing. When you're in a group that's putting on a show, it doesn't matter how small your role is. At some point, we're depending on you to do that role.
Yeah.
So to be professional, you have to, it's not just for the director and for the star. Everybody has to be there. The more professional it is, the more money it is. The more money it is, the more responsibility it is. And that is the more, hey, we're done with you. But if it's an amateur thing or a semi-professional thing, then it's different. In part because how many people are going to be willing to sacrifice, right? As much.
So then you have to manage your values, and you have to consider other people's values as well, right? But yes, definitely in the professional setting, in the work setting, there are certain expectations, but that shouldn't always carry across to like these more casual sort of social settings.
Of course, the other thing is art at times could be collaborative and based on personal relationships, and that complicates the whole, let's be professional.
Right, so then that comes back to the whole boundaries thing, making sure that we set boundaries. We've, the past couple of discussions we've had about setting boundaries of being open to communication, making sure that your communication is very specific. What?
No, I'm just saying, what Mark is telling me is a significant amount of his trauma is because some people come to shows, the rehearsals late. That's what I'm saying.
That's not what I'm saying. No, what I'm saying is I hate you so much.
Listen.
No, that is not what I'm saying. No, honestly.
That's my goal. When he says he hates me, I have succeeded. I'm pretty sure I struck a nerve somewhere. There's some truth there. There's some hidden trauma.
No, I'm deciding if to spill the hidden trauma or not.
There, exactly.
But it's not specific.
You hate me because you know I'm right and you don't want to go there.
You know what? I think what it is I've experienced, and we've had this discussion again with Sule. Sule, I think you need to come back on the show. We've had this discussion where he said past experiences dictates future outcomes, at least for the person that has experienced it. So if, let's say, Sean and I are in a group, and Sean is always late, or Sean is doing something that sort of crosses the boundaries that I've said. By the way, boundaries that I have not yet communicated to him, so he doesn't know that he's breaking it, right? Then, but that's not Sean's fault, because the person in the past has let me down, and I've not communicated this, because in my brain I think everybody should think like this. But the reality is not everyone thinks the same. The reality is not everybody moves through life the same, and not everybody values everything the same way. So I have to communicate to Sean, breakthrough is very valuable to me. And so I need you to always be here and ready in your chair by 11:15 so that you can be mic'd and prepped. I'm not saying anything. I'm not, leave that face. You need to be in your chair and prep so that we can start the show on time, right? But if he doesn't do it and I've not communicated it with him, then I will be upset all of the time. But my brain thinks he should know how to do this. I should not be telling this big man who's much older than me that this is what he needs to do. But saying all that to say, I love you.
It's just an example. It's just an example.
It's just an example. It's just an example. It's just an example.
Yeah.
But again,
you throw me under the bus. Yeah.
But
how do I admit it to be true?
And that's
and not reveal anyone else's name? I'll just conveniently throw you under the bus. but
those are the things that leads to the burnout, because you're not being honest with your communication, you're not being honest with your boundaries, and you're not reading the thing. Just as we wrap up really quickly.
Burnout is what happens when your nervous system has to impersonate your value system.
Yeah.
So when that happens, now your value system of trying to be on time, you start to compromise it.
Yes. Correct.
And then that leads to further burnout and anxiety.
Exactly. So those are the things. And just to wrap it up, just the last slide that the post says, sometimes we're forced to live a life that's out of alignment because of situational variables that are out of our control. If you're in a place like this, the person's, my heart goes out to you as well, but the person's heart goes out to us. Take pockets of rest when you can and try to stay tethered to who you truly are and what you truly care about. It's always important to sort of list your values, list the things that are important to you, and communicate those things to other people. All right? Communicate. But that was a heavy topic. I am quite tired. Not quite burnt out, but I am quite tired. But anyway, this has been Breakthrough, ladies and gentlemen.
Always burnt out?
I'm working on it. See, I didn't come for your neck that time, right? That was a slide remark that you just did.
You come
anyway,
for my neck normally.
This has been Breakthrough on WESN
right here
on Content. I don't know what to say, right here on WESN Content Capital. Mark Anthony Peter, Sean Michael Small, thank you for joining us. Have a wonderful week.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
WESN